Welcome to this explainer. I'm so thrilled you're here today because we're focusing squarely on something that frankly keeps a lot of university leaders, administrators, and educators up at night. We're talking about navigating the incredibly complex landscape of educational assessments. Look, if you're running an educational institution today, you already know evaluating student progress has evolved way beyond just handing out a simple end-of-year exam. It's become this massive, multi-layered, data-driven ecosystem. So, in this explainer, we're going to dig into exactly why managing all these different assessment methods has become such a massive logistical challenge in higher ed, and more importantly, how a unified technological platform called Qorrect is stepping in to simplify, automate, and honestly just dramatically improve that entire process.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with Step 1, the foundation. Then Step 2, comparing key types of assessments. Step 3 dives into the higher ed challenge. And finally, Step 4, automating with Qorrect. Let's get right into it.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the foundation. We're going to look at the true purpose of assessments.
Before we can even think about solving the logistical puzzle of testing, we absolutely have to lock in on one core philosophy. Assessments go way, way beyond just assigning grades. It's so easy for institutions to get caught up in the administrative machinery, just generating GPAs and final marks. But evaluations, they're fundamentally about student growth. It's about checking the pulse of the entire learning process. Handing out a letter grade is literally just the tip of the iceberg. The real substance lies in what that data tells us about the student's journey and how we, as educators, need to adapt.
The true purpose of assessment really breaks down into 4 interconnected pillars. First up, measuring the mastery of academic subjects. We have to know if the core knowledge was actually absorbed. Second, providing professional feedback. And this isn't just for the students, it's for the professors too. It's a two-way mirror. Third, identifying specific strengths and weaknesses. This one is absolutely crucial because it lets educators customize their teaching strategies right there on the fly. And fourth, supporting curriculum development. Think about it. If an entire cohort is struggling with a specific module, that data is basically waving a red flag to university leaders that the curricular itself might need an overhaul. It is a completely interconnected cycle of continuous improvement.
Moving right along to Section 2, comparing key types, or how we actually measure success.
So how do we measure success? It sounds like a deep philosophical question, right? But in higher education, it's actually a highly technical one. Depending on your learning objectives, success looks entirely different. Do you want to know if a student is the absolute best in their class, or do you just need to know if they've mastered a specific critical skill? Your answer totally dictates the type of assessment you have to use.
This split perfectly illustrates the divide. Let's look at norm-referenced assessments first. These are designed to compare students' performance against a huge group of their peers. Think of standardized tests or aptitude tests. The whole focus here is on ranking, placement, and relative scores. It tells you exactly who sits in the top 10%. But on the flip side, we have criterion-referenced assessments. Now, these measure a student against a fixed set of standards or defined criteria, like a proficiency exam. In this case, it doesn't matter what the rest of the class scored. It literally only matters if that one individual student mastered the specific learning outcomes. Both are fundamental to academic evaluation, but they serve completely different strategic purposes.
Which brings us to Section 3, the higher ed challenge, and building out an arsenal of tools.
To really wrap our heads around the depth of this challenge, let's look at a very specific term, Ipsative assessment. This is a super nuanced type of evaluation, where a student's current performance is compared exclusively with their own previous results. It tracks personal growth over time, completely independent of their peers or some universal standard. It basically asks, hey, are you better today than you were yesterday? This is incredibly valuable for fostering student motivation and tracking genuine cognitive development. But imagine being a university administrator trying to track this kind of highly individualized historical data for tens of thousands of students across dozens of departments. The logistical complexity scales up instantly. There's no way you're doing that on a spreadsheet.
And that builds into a very real pain point. Just look at the sheer volume of distinct assessment types higher education administrators have to juggle. We've got formative assessments for ongoing feedback during the course, summative assessments to evaluate outcomes at the very end, diagnostic assessments given before instruction even begins to identify baseline knowledge, performance-based tasks where students actually demonstrate their understanding in real time, collaborative, self- and peer assessments, and of course, those Ipsative assessments tracking personal growth we just discussed. A healthy modern university environment requires all of these working in perfect harmony to cover different learning needs. But trying to manage this whole shebang manually or with disconnected systems, it's an absolute administrative nightmare.
Oh, and the execution is just as wild as the theory. To actually deliver those different types of assessments, educators have to combine these 4 techniques: observation, oral questioning, written tests, and performance-based tasks. You just can't rely on multiple-choice written tests for everything anymore. You need well-rounded evaluations. But here's the rub. How do you standardize the grading of an oral question or a live observation? How do you guarantee that a performance-based assessment accurately maps back to the university's strict learning objectives? That is the massive challenge facing higher ed today. This intense friction between the desire for advanced, diverse assessment methods and the harsh logistical reality of actually pulling them off.
So, let's talk solutions in Section 4, Automating with Qorrect, our technological solution. Effectively managing this complex web of diverse educational evaluations requires 3 essential pillars: flexibility, accuracy, and efficiency. You need the flexibility to create formative, summative, and ipsative assessments. You need the accuracy to ensure they're graded fairly and map perfectly to your criteria. And you need the efficiency to do all this for thousands of students without burying your faculty under a mountain of paperwork. This is exactly where the Qorrect platform enters the picture. It's a real game changer.
Think of Qorrect as the ultimate orchestrator for universities. First off, it allows for the super easy creation of all those different assessments we just talked about, from norm-referenced right through to criterion-referenced, all in one single place. Second, and honestly this is massive for university accreditation, it ensures that every single assessment aligns directly with your target learning objectives. Nothing slips through the cracks. Third, it features automated grading, which literally gives your faculty their time back. And fourth, it generates comprehensive analytics and reports. Qorrect essentially takes all that scattered data from your multiple assessment types, centralizes it, and finally allows professors and administrators to make true data-driven decisions.
Let's break down how this workflow actually plays out in practice. The technology enhances effectiveness through 3 simple steps. Step 1. Automated grading steps in to immediately handle the heavy lifting of evaluation. Step 2. Instant feedback is generated, so instead of waiting weeks to know how they did, students receive immediate actionable insights, which we know is absolutely critical for formative and ipsative learning. And finally, Step 3. Data-driven insights are delivered directly to the educators. The platform analyzes the results to highlight overall curriculum strengths and weaknesses. By unifying these steps, Qorrect takes what used to be a complete logistical nightmare and transforms it into this sleek, highly efficient, and incredibly supportive educational ecosystem.
I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today. Are your current systems holding back your true educational innovation? We've seen that measuring student success is incredibly nuanced. If you're a university leader or educator relying on outdated, disconnected tools to manage your formative, summative, and performance-based assessments, well, you aren't just creating more paperwork. You might actually be capping your institution's potential. It takes modern technology to support modern education. So take a hard look at your assessment infrastructure and ask yourself if it's finally time to upgrade your approach. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll see you in the next explainer.